Howdy y'all, welcome to part 3 of installing the 2RZ, 3RZ into my first gen 1989 4runner. If you guys haven't checked out the first 2 parts, I showed taking the 22RE out, doing some prep work. Part number 2, we started working on cleaning up this 2RZ and getting it ready to go. And now, this is part 3, we're ready to slam this thing in here. So I'm gonna bring you guys in and show you guys a couple of things I'm gonna do real quick before dropping it in, and the clutch and flywheel that I got set up, and we're gonna get to it. So here it is. I've done a little bit of work in between just because I don't want this series to be too much longer than it has to be. I got all the accessories put back on. Got it pretty well put all together. We are clutch and flywheel all mounted up. Went pretty smoothly. I got the heaviest 3RZ 4-wheel drive flywheel that I could find. And then I got a pretty decent Asian clutch to go with it. This might not be strong enough if we end up going boost, but for right now, this is gonna work just fine. So over here, we have the new 22RE throwout bearing. We got the 22RE clutch fork, and we got it mounted up over here to a 3RZ slave cylinder. So that's gonna go with this bell housing that I picked up for a 3RZ bell housing off of a manual transmission. Okay, I showed that in the other video. Now our only last problem is going to be, as many of you guys have noticed, the starter, the exhaust, and pretty much everything did a flip-flop. So down here is our fuel line. I'm gonna show you how we're gonna flip that over here. Then we also down here have our old slave cylinder, which you can see is on the wrong side. So I have a new hard line that we're gonna bend up from up here, our reservoir. It's gonna come down and sneak across. Super easy, like 10 bucks. So I got these Chilcat motor mounts on here. Forgot to mention that I got those mounted up. So I picked up these. They're transmission motor mounts. I'll make sure I leave the part number in there for you guys. But this is going to sit on top of our towers, and that's what's gonna allow us to bolt up the engine. So right now, I'm working over here on getting this fuel line apart. This is the factory 22RE fuel line. As you can see, I already snapped a nice Harbor Freight piece of junk wrench. So we're gonna have to find out how we can get this off, and I'm gonna show you how I'm gonna run the fuel line. All right, so I went ahead and fit up the clutch line real quick. You can see it goes down there. I even utilized the factory bracket. So I think that turned out pretty clean. All right, y'all, it's another day. Kind of ran out of time. I went ahead and did some real quick work off camera just to get a little head start. I'm gonna show you guys what I got working. So down here is our factory fuel line, and I adapted it into this fuel filter from a V6 4runner Tacoma. And then I have this bushing set that converts the steel line into nylon line. And then I have my nylon line come up and over, and it'll come down to the back of the engine. I also got the new motor mounts mocked up. So this is gonna be the adapter that goes, it's a transmission mount like I talked about earlier, and it's gonna adapt to the Chilcat motor mounts. So that way we have the right spacing and everything. I'll show you guys. So over here we have our Chilcat motor mounts. You got the single hole in the middle. And like I said, that's gonna bolt right up. Should bolt up right in the middle. If not, we have some options. So with that, I'm gonna once over everything real quick again, make sure I got what I needed, but I think it's time to drop this engine in. All right, so I think I got everything buttoned up that I can. I got everything pulled up and out of the way over here. All right, we dropped it down a little bit. We're able to turn it sideways. And still, as we drop it down, it's gonna push it back further and we should be able to clear. Well, we almost had it in, and I realized that there's 2 dowel pins inside of here, which is great because I already have 2 dowel pins. So now we just try again. All right, well, I thought that was gonna be a super big fight. Luckily, I was able to get a solid grip with the vice grips and kind of work it back and forth. Then I just put a little pry bar in there and slowly pulled it out. Worked pretty good. Only took me like 2 minutes. Well, here we are, the engine is in. Took a little bit of finagling since I had to do it by myself, but not that big of a deal. That's part of swaps. It's not as easy as you think, but it's still not that difficult. It just takes a little bit of hassle. Still gotta get my motor mount bolts in. Those should line up pretty easily. Up here, this is the Tacoma igniter. Pretty much have it in the factory spot, and I have it bolted up right here for now. We can add an extra bolt. We'll see if I end up moving this stuff around. I'm just mocking things up. Over here on the passenger side, you can see I got the factory harness all ran. You have your main harness that goes to the ECU. I have it through the factory hole. We're gonna have to work on either extending this or sealing this up somehow, because you don't want rainwater stuff to get down, follow it into your ECU. So then, down here, I drop down, show you up underneath. This is going to be an automatic transmission. We're not gonna need that. And then we have our 2 O2 plugs. So I might have to extend these or buy an adapter harness, but we'll see. This is gonna be obviously my upstream, and this one will go back further to the downstream. So starting over here on the driver's side, we got our alternator wires kind of getting ran. Got all that hooked up. Up here you can see where we have our positive battery cable, our negative battery cable. This is all gonna go on this side now. Remember, we're switching sides. And this is all factory wiring. So over here, you can see this wire that jumps off is gonna come up here to our factory connection. And down here, this is the old alternator pigtail, and it is going to splice in to the new Tacoma pigtail. We're gonna have to change up some of the wiring colors. Everything's pretty similar, as you can tell. Just make sure you be careful with the black wire. I'll talk about that later. All right, y'all, I'm back at the house. I'm gonna show you some of the stuff that I have mocked up, getting a head start on this wiring. And then of course we have our 2RZ, 3RZ ECU. I'm starting to label this stuff. Patrick got me a head start on labeling these things, trying to get me going here. And then obviously we'll get these guys all plugged into it as well, and we'll be ready to go. But this stuff pretty much just plugs right in. This is where a lot of our wire splicing is going to be happening, over here on the smallest connector. And I'll show you guys a little bit more as we get going. So right now what we're working on is we're getting this fuel line finally wrapped up. I ended up just going with some rubber high pressure fuel injector line. This stuff's not too bad. It's like $4 or $5 a foot. And then I got these clamps right here. You want to use these clamps that are made for fuel injector line, and then you want to crimp both sides. I already kind of talked about earlier what we did down here with the fuel filter. So down here we have our fuel filter hooked up. So we'll hook this line up. It's gonna wrap around. We're gonna try to make it as clean as possible, get it hooked up here to the fuel rail. And then down below, over here on the other side. So over here, this is gonna be your fuel pressure regulator right off of the fuel rail. And this will be down to your return line. So you got this little fuel hose. I kind of just wrapped it up underneath, and that'll come up here and go back to where your charcoal canister was and go back in here to your return line. So these are the fuel hose high pressure line clamps that you can get. They do a lot better job than just your generic hose clamps. This will actually help with high pressure lines. So you definitely want to try to use these. So also what we're gonna have to do is get this MAF sensor hooked up and get some sort of piping ran. I have a little bit of a custom deal that we're working on back here. We'll show you guys. I got my buddy helping me. He's kind of working on that, so I'll show you guys what he's doing. So here my buddy Cameron, he just flew in from California. He's helping me out. This is a 3.4 V6 intake piping. And this is the sensor that I'm gonna need for my 2RZ. So we just got it hooked up right now. And then we took off all the baffles that we're not really gonna need for this. And we're just kind of clamping them up for now. Kind of something custom that we got off of good old Ace Hardware. But I think it'll actually look pretty clean once we get done. So what we're thinking about doing is cutting this off, because I don't think we need all this stuff. I don't have any smog around here, so I doubt any of this is gonna serve any purpose for me. But if we cut this off and then re-roll it, this will get us extended over here. We can use that 3.4 hose that Cameron's working on. And then down here, this is gonna be the 3.4 box. Now this is the box that most guys like to use because it's a lot narrower compared to the 2RZ box. You can see the height difference on it. This should fit pretty much perfectly down into here and give us that angle right where we want to go. So it's going to take a little bit of fabricating, but hopefully we can make it look pretty clean. So over here we got the battery in already. I got the factory clamp. I just kind of had to bend it up just a little bit, but we'll have to find a way to make it a little more secure, but this kind of gets it in here for now for testing. I already started running most of the wiring. We can actually pretty much almost fire this thing up once we get the fuel line wrapped up and the MAF sensor. I will definitely show you guys a little more in depth here in a second what we got going on with the wiring, but this is kind of where we're at right now. All right, y'all, so we've been hammering on this thing. Sorry we haven't got a whole lot of footage tinkering on it. It's kind of hard when you're doing a swap to really capture every nut and bolt. We fought the exhaust for a little while, so there was really nothing to record there. There's just kind of a couple other things, getting this thing all mocked up. So I want to show you guys this real quick. So this is a 3.4 tube and box, and it fits pretty much perfect in here. I had to trim this little bracket off right here, and I still want to try to get this fitting a little better, and I'll probably order a different tube. But for right now, also, a couple of our baffles were tore up, so we just put these caps real quick, kind of custom. We might paint them or something for the time being just to get some miles on this and see what kind of reliability and little kinks we have to work through with the swap. But we were able to use the rubber gasket to create a flange on the front of this, bolts up perfectly. Now we have the ability to do a normal stock Toyota filter change. So really happy with how this works out. We still need to do the temp sensor. We'll just bolt that right into here. Should be pretty simple, but otherwise, I'm gonna show you over here the radiator. You guys already saw when I had the 22RE in here, we put the CSF radiator. I knew that eventually we're gonna want more cooling, different engines, different stuff going on. That's what's sweet about this setup is this radiator, the CSF will work with the 2RZ and the 3RZ. So for what I had with the 2RZ radiator hoses, I was able to use all the stock 2RZ hoses. So as you can see right here, this is the stock upper hose. Comes right around everything how it's supposed to. Didn't have to do any trimming. So over here you can see the stock lower radiator hose. This is again off of a 2RZ. I can't confirm. This might just work because this came off of a two-wheel drive truck, but literally had to do no trimming and it just went right in. So you might have to do a little research, do some fitment. I'm pretty sure no matter what 2RZ, 3RZ combo you have, you will be able to use either the 22RE or the 2RZ, 3RZ hoses. And some people over here, depending on what they have, if they have the 3RZ with the 4-wheel drive, I think the radiator hoses route a little bit differently, and I think they use these metal extenders off of the 22RE. So keep a hold of this if you're doing the swap, just in case you might use it. for our application, it looks like we're not gonna have to mess with it. So worked out pretty good. All right, guys, I think we are ready to fire this thing up. Like I said, I'll do a little more talking about the wiring and different things at the end of the video to try to catch everybody up and give you guys as much details as I can to help you with these swaps. But as you can see, the way this thing fits in here, I mean, it literally looks stock. I don't think anybody would know any different, obviously, unless you're a Toyota fan. Well, let's try to fire this thing up and see if it'll run for us. Alright, so we're gonna run down to the store and I need to get some radiator fluid. This thing's still empty right now. We're gonna need a couple little connectors and things and try to find something. We're probably just gonna do something real cheap and jankety for the exhaust just so we can kind of give it a test run. But other than that, we'll be right back and we'll get y'all caught up. Alright y'all, we just got back from the parts store. So we got a little bit of coolant, some ATF, some other stuff. This is going to be pretty much what our exhaust setup is. We'll pull you under the truck so we can show you. But hopefully we're just going to need to use these two 90s. They're about $10 a piece. If not, we have this guy, which is like another 10 bucks. So for under $50, we should be able to make this exhaust work pretty good. So we'll have two clamps, one on each side, and then we're able to bend this to where we can get it up to the engine and then get it back to our stock 22RE exhaust. We'll weld it right here, or you can clamp it, obviously, if you don't have that situation. And then basically, you have a completely bolt-in flange setup that'll go into your truck for less than 50 bucks.
Safety squeaks.
All right, so we're up under the truck, and this is how our fitting is kind of going. So right here, we'll fit this guy up right here at about a flat spot. We need to make sure we stay out of the way of our drain plug. This guy will slip into here, and we can bend it up. You can see this guy up here. We'll get it nice and lined up, make a couple of Sharpie marks, cut it off. That's why I left this guy long. And we should hopefully be able to clear all of this perfectly. I don't want the rain on me.
Yeah.
Ready? Oh, good ground. Maybe this should be welding over the propane tank. Alright, let's get this thing all hooked up, and I think we're ready to fire this puppy up.
It sounds like a Prius. Give her a little throttle. Give her a little vroom vroom.
What's going on, y'all? So we got about 50 miles or so, maybe a half a tank on the new swap. You guys saw in that last clip, we got it running. So I've just been kind of running around trying to see if I have any kinks and stuff that I need to work out on it. Thankfully, we've had pretty much no issues. Couple little radiator hose leaks. A heater hose was trying to leak in. Nothing really that big of a deal, just old clamps that weren't sealing too good. So far, I'm really happy. We ended up developing over the last day or so a little bit of an exhaust leak at the header. So we're gonna have to probably get a new header eventually and a new flange at least to reseal that up. All right, y'all, so I'm gonna get you in here. As you can see, we moved the battery over to this side. Everyone knows that's part of the swap. I still haven't built really a battery box for this yet. I mean, there's still so much to do that we can do in a future video. But right now we got it over here. This is the factory hold down we got over here, bolted in. I mean, this thing's not really going anywhere. Obviously we don't want to hit any jumps and nothing crazy with it until we get something a lot more secure. But that's pretty awesome. All right, so over here you can see we used our factory junction box. We were able to splice in. We got about an 80 amp fuse going over there to our fuse box. We got our starter relay we moved on this side. So, you know, it's pretty common. I made a previous video about having the starter contacts go out. For me, that was able to fix my quick no start issue, but obviously a lot of you guys know that sometimes you have voltage issues and you have other issues in line on these Toyotas that give you low voltage, and then your starter relay is just clicking. So by switching over to just the starter relay and running a direct wire to it, now we eliminated that issue. So we got the starter relay over here. We were able to use the factory wiring harness down here to go to the alternator. Pretty much just plug and play. All of the colors were able to match on my setup. And so just, you got down here, you can't really see it because I've covered everything up, but pretty much color to color, everything connected. We pulled the starter relay harness down here that was over there, and we were able to splice that in, like I said, to use this factory starter relay. So over on this side, so over here, we have the factory location where the ECU was. So I covered all of this up. You guys are gonna have to do your own research when it comes to wiring these things. Obviously there's wiring harnesses out there, and I was able to wire this up myself with a lot of help from some buddies, but for the most part, this is not gonna be a plug and play type deal. And depending on if you have a 2RZ, a 3RZ, so you have the 3 different versions of this engine. You have the one that I have, which is the distributor one. You have the mid-year, which has the coil packs. And then you have the 3rd version, which is just coil packs. You have 4 coil packs, 1 per cylinder. And all of those are gonna have different wiring, and even year to year, 2RZ, 3RZ, you have different color wires. So I'm not gonna be able to show you, you know, red wire to red wire. There's nothing plug and play about this. You're gonna have to get a wiring schematic online. A lot of the first gen 4runner groups and different things have them in the files, so you're able to pull that stuff up. There's lots of videos out there. I know, I think it's Dirt Garage. They made a video on doing a 2RZ swap, and he has a pretty cool little video that he made about wiring this up. That was super awesome and helpful. So just get out there and do your research, and you guys can make this happen. Anybody can wire these things themselves. It's just not something that I'm gonna be able to show you wire for wire how to get this thing going. You guys are more than welcome to drop in the comments any little questions that you have, and I can try to help you out as much as possible. So up under here, we built a heat shield for this fuel filter that I hooked up. This was a 3.4 V6 fuel filter. So now we have something that we're able to interchange in the future. We just unscrew it just like factory. We have this heat shield with some heat shield mat on it. We were able to grab this, and it was pretty much cool to the touch last night after running for about an hour. Now this was getting pretty warm, but it's doing its job. It's keeping this cool, keeping the heat from the exhaust off of it. And so that's what you want. So back up over here, we talked about earlier about getting all that heat shield on this firewall, because with that exhaust being super close to it now, I've heard a lot of guys say that they've melted carpet and burnt carpet because it comes to this firewall and gets really hot. So it's really important that you get that heat shielding down there. right, guys, so that's gonna wrap up this video. Hopefully that was super, informative for you. I tried to do the best that I could with what I had. This is just such a long process. These engine swaps are hard to record. It's hard to get every little detail. Like I said, I'm on all the forums. You guys have seen me around. Ask me questions. I have no problem trying to give you any information I have on these swaps. I'm trying to show you guys that anybody can do this. I am not a wiring nerd by any means. I've not done a whole lot of swaps. I've done a few, but nothing on a Toyota. So this is all new stuff to me. If I can do it, you guys can do it. So don't get stressed out about it. Ask me questions if you have to, but get out there and get it going. Keep living for Jesus.